So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the SOF Community Pod. It is February. If you have never been to the pod before, you are so welcome. I have a feeling we might hit the 100 mark today, which means we're full. So guys, you got here early, you got in on time. Oh my God, are they going to get in? We're at 96, 97. 3 spaces left. Who are the lucky 3? Chris Massey. Give him a round of applause when he gets through the door. So if you've never been to a pod before, we start with music. We then have a poem. We then have silence. And then we get on with the conversation. We just ask that everyone just stays on mute at this time so that everybody can enjoy. That is it. We've hit 100. So firstly, I just need to celebrate that because that's the first time that's happened in 2.5 years. So everyone who's here with us right now, thank you so much. Natalie, that is a risk, logging out and logging back in again. Someone might slip through the door. Don't leave the room is what I suggest. Oh my God. So I'm going to read you a poem. The word of the month is emergence. So just hold that in your noticing as you listen to this poem. And it's by John Riddell, and I don't know the title of it. On the first midnight in February, angels slip across from the beyond just to write their love letters to us on the trees with the tiniest of frozen pencils. Can't you see it, my love? The devil is in the details. The divine is in each morsel of frost. There is a drop of holy water holding its breath for spring, as it patiently waits to feed the hibernating roses. I'm holding my breath too, because I believe that everything frozen will someday melt. The anticipation of spring is what makes the colours of April baptise us in the pastel swirl of resurrection. Without the grey, how would we ever come to love the green? Those frozen, suspended love letters from the angels in the trees are telling us to hold on, baby, hold on. The nights are getting shorter. The daylight is starting to win. Hold on. Everything that freezes will someday melt. All that is captured by death shall someday be set free. Even you, my love. Your great thaw is coming. I know you can feel it. Your heart is starting to stir. Your icicle tears are beginning to pour. You're melting straight into your new life. Hold on. Hold on. You're almost at the end of your deep freeze. Hold on a little more. You've endured so many long, dark nights, and now your springtime is scratching at the topsoil under your skin. I see baby rosebuds where your pupils should be. I can see your new flower crowns starting to bloom in your hair. Hold on. Your melting heart is about to feed the earth, and soon everywhere you walk, a garden of Easter lilies will grow under your bare feet. Hold on. So we'll just take a minute's silence now. So just close your eyes, look out a window, just take some breaths, and just know you're sitting with 99 other awesome souls from around the world. Okay, it was a minute and a half, but an extra 30 seconds is always good for us. So welcome to the SOF Community Pod. If this is your first time with us today, give us a wave, drop us an emoji. Hey Sam, hey Bev, seeing some waves. Hey Christina. Dee, I see you. Rosie, I see you too. Leslie, oh God, and some thumbs up. Sonali, Holly, down. Is PYC Portsmouth Yacht Club? I'm just curious because YC. The word of the month is emergence. So for those of you who are new here, we always have a word of the month. January was grounding, and this month it is emergence. And I'd love you just to notice what has been going on for you personally, what has been going on maybe outside your windows, but slowly Mother Nature is emerging from underneath the soil. So I'm hoping that many of us have kept up our rituals of going out for a walk or having fresh air each day. And maybe you started to notice that the snowdrops are arriving here in the Northern Hemisphere. For those of you who are a little further south, I'm hoping that you've got maybe some leaves on the trees starting to show up. But basically, life is starting to re-emerge, and for me personally, I'm noticing that energy as well. So I think definitely my clients have emerged and are awake. I'm feeling like we're all back to full guns blazing, meetings are happening, and life is just starting to show up. Anyone else feeling that emergence energy? Just give me a wave or a shout, some thumbs up going on, or good, love it. No, that might not resonate for you. That is okay. This is just something I've been playing with for the last year, and it's lovely. And we use different words, and each month we'll talk about them. Now, this month though, and the reason why you're all here is we are going to talk about hybrid meetings and workshops. And my guest, so I'm going to go into producer mode, but my guest today is Phil. So if you can't locate Phil, Phil has a bright orange background. So if you can locate the man with a bright orange background, that is Phil. So Phil, hello mate, how are you?
Morning. I have to say it's wonderful to see so many people here, and not in the slightest bit intimidating. So
no, it's not. I'm just going to pin you, mate. Yeah, isn't it cool that there are so many people here to hang out with us? So Phil, we're going to talk about hybrid meetings and hybrid workshops. I just think we should start with a couple of definitions. So what does hybrid mean to you?
So really clearly for me, hybrid is some people are in the room and some people are not in the room. So we like to just start with the fun of putting some names on it. We call them Roomies and Zoomies. You might not be using Zoom, other platforms are available, but Roomies and Zoomies for ease.
Okay. And what is hybrid not?
So I've had quite a few inquiries recently about hybrid management and hybrid leadership. And that is, for me, that's something different. We're talking about hybrid as in events, facilitation, training. So for me, it's really important we're talking hybrid events, facilitation and training, and not management or leadership.
Okay, cool. And also what it's not, I think we said, is when the facilitator is on a computer screen.
Oh my goodness, if anyone asks you to dial in and be the person leading the course on the screen, just run a million miles, say no.
And why would you say that?
For me, it's about connection, right? Facilitation, training, it's fundamentally about connection. And what we've learned over the last few years is we can achieve some of that. We can achieve lots of that online. But if you're the only person isolated from your audience, I think your connection is hugely diminished.
Yeah.
To the point where, that would be an invitation I would be politely declining.
Yes. Now, I'm really curious to ask everybody who's joined us today, who has experienced a hybrid workshop? So we've just thrown a poll up onto the screen, and hopefully you can click who's experienced a hybrid meeting, who has not. And it doesn't matter whether you were facilitating it or you were participating. So a couple of people are already saying, we got Fletch saying, I did it on Wednesday, complete disaster, never again. It was a learning experience. Mr. B, I did a virtual facilitation unexpectedly and it wasn't great. Sam, I was a facilitator online with a room full of people in a canteen and others online. It was not fun. Yeah, interesting. So let me just end the poll and share it with you. So what we're seeing is, it's a 2/3 of us, 66% have experienced a hybrid workshop and 34% had the pleasure yet. Other comments in the chat box. Interesting. Sam, you do one every 2 weeks. Interesting. Monica, I did one once and I haven't been invited back. It'd be lovely to hear some voices in the room. Let's start with the positive. Who's had a positive experience and would they like to share? Voice in the room, you can do this. Don't leave me hanging, people.
I can share if you like. Sam here. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I'm in a thing called Toastmasters, which is a public speaking for fun organisation, which always thrills everybody. And we have been doing hybrid meetings since October last year. And what that means is that people are literally joining the meeting on Zoom and in person in the room. Yeah. So we had to find a way to be able to show the speaker and the people on the Zoom or on a screen and show the people in the room and the mics and the speakers. So after about 8 goes, we think we've got it.
Nice, Sam. Thank you. It's good to hear that it is starting to work and it's tried and tested. So what we'll get you to do is come back and tell us a bit more later probably about what you're noticing of what's worked and what your learnings were as we went through that. Who would like to share a horror story? Anyone want to come on? I know there's a few out there.
I might as well share mine. My canteen full of people and me online and some other people online. It was always going to be problematic. This was at the height of the lockdown. They were all socially distanced in the canteen, sitting 2 meters apart from each other. I couldn't see all of them. They had me on loudspeaker in the canteen, and all I could hear was me 30 seconds after I spoke. So I had to deliver everything quite slowly because I was getting this horrific kind of echo of myself. People online were just doing all kinds of crazy things. And we got through it. But it was nerve-wracking and it was exhausting, and it's not something that I really want to do again in that kind of context. I have had better hybrid meetings where I've been in the room with some people online, but that one was a shocker and it will stay with me.
Oh my God, you sound scarred, Sam. Good to see you.
And you.
Look, thank you very much. Only because I'm a masochist. Can someone else share a story?
I'm happy to share, Kirsty.
Hello, Fletch.
Just going to my disastrous, and I so hear you, Phil. Don't do it if you're the facilitator online and they're all in the room. They just dropped it on me because clearly I hadn't asked for that. The thing I found really hard was in that group, there was the HR director who was a big character, big strong lady who just dominated the whole thing. And it's really interesting. You realise as a facilitator being in the room, you can have some control and some presence. And what really struck me, and I'm sure you'll be talking about this, is the inclusion side of things. It was almost impossible. The beauty of having everyone virtual is you've got your chat box, you can see who's interacting, you can get people into the little breakouts. I had none of that. I just had this one big voice and I kept saying, let's hear from somebody else. Let's go in pairs. Never ever. And I said, learning experience. It's the best way to learn is put yourself into that awkward situation.
And hopefully after this conversation and a couple of masterclasses we're launching, you don't have to have that experience again, Caroline. So we're going to share some more. Thank you so much. One more, just because I love these stories. Who wants to hop in?
Rita's got her hand up and Monica.
Okay.
Go, Rita, talk to us.
Okay. Well, Phil, I haven't run a mile. I'm doing one in 2 weeks where all the delegates are in Brazil. They're across from different parts of Latin America and coming from the UK. However, because I experienced the nightmare that another trainer had when I was in the UK and she was zooming in from Ireland, I've now been able to set very clear parameters around their responsibility to ensure they're in my line of vision, their responsibility to make sure that everything is set up in the room. And I've been really clear that this is not an ideal situation, but I understand they haven't been together for 2 years and they don't want, but sorry, I should say I previously delivered virtual workshops for them where everyone's on their laptop right across Latin America. So I hope I won't be coming back in a couple of weeks sharing, you know, a horror story, but I'm going to give it a go, because I've learned from somebody else's experience where I tried to save the day for her. And, you know, it was a nightmare for her, a bit like your story, Sam, but I was in the room. And I've also said somebody has to be in the room to support me. So,
Phil, I can see Phil hovering, about to say something. Phil.
You got there with your very last comment, Rita. The key thing for me, if I was faced with that and if I had to do it and if I had to help a client out, it's the contracting with one person in the room who's going to be your body in the room, and making sure you've got a communication back channel so that you and that person can communicate about the in-room dynamics. Although you're not in the room, you can still have some influence and some management over the in-room dynamics through that person.
Thank you. Phil, you wanted to share an example that you from Oxfam and what you were doing and what you were being asked to do.
Yeah, so we did, it was September time, we did a team day, and people in the UK were really keen to get all together, but lots of people were still isolating, and there was also a good chunk of people that were in other countries, right? And normally back in the day it would have been an Oxford meeting with the Oxfam team. But over the course of the pandemic, we've brought all those meetings to a global audience. So massive benefits in terms of inclusion. So when we say, okay, we're going to have a team day, we want to include the whole team. We want to be inclusive about this and make sure that everyone is involved. So I ended up facilitating a 60-person team day with 15 online participants and 45 in the room. And we took great care to really plan 2.5 events, because we planned the in-room event for everyone to have a great experience in the room. We planned the online event for everyone to have a great experience online. And then we planned kind of the combination event where the event came together. And we had multiple facilitators and multiple speakers, both human and electronic. It was a really great day where we got some really lovely feedback about how included people felt.
So that leads us neatly into what we as facilitators and trainers can start thinking about if we hear those immortal words from our clients. I'd like to do some training, I'd like to do a meeting. And then you start to say, okay, is this virtual or is this in person? And they say, well, actually, we've got some people in the room and I've got some other people dialing in because of restrictions. They're unable to join us. Where do we start in our thinking?
Well, for me, it's all about the prep. It's all about taking the client back to basics and saying, you know, what do you want to achieve? What's the objectives of this? Because it could be, I've had one client where we actually backed out of the hybrid and we said, actually, the key thing here is the participant experience, because we really want to listen to this audience. So in order to really listen to this audience, we're going to run, and it took 3 of us to be present at 2 different events. We ran a great virtual event that was a lovely experience for the online people who couldn't make it to the venue. And we ran a great in-person event for everyone who wanted to and was able to come. And there were 3 of us at both events to provide the continuity. But the key thing for us is that the experience was key for the participants, because that we really needed them to open up and share. So it was really good from that point of view. And I think that's it with the client. You need to ask them why.
Yeah.
It's not, get them to explain what the tacit benefits are of getting people together and what they're prepared to sacrifice in order to get that. And once you really have that conversation, you can work out the best way forward.
And and you also said you need to start thinking, if they go, yes, we definitely want to do it this way, explaining that you'll be designing for Roomies and Zoomies.
Yeah, because you can't throw post-its through a computer screen, right? You've got to do different types of activities for the different audiences. And for me, I don't know if I'm just naturally biased, but I think about the power dynamics of a hybrid meeting where you've got Roomies and Zoomies.
Yeah.
And really acknowledge the fact that actually, if you're in the room, you've got much more access to put your voice in the room. It's much more natural to read the body language and the temperature of the room, and to pace your contributions appropriately.
Yeah.
So for me, I prioritize the online participants and give them as much love as possible. Maybe even give them an online facilitator so that they've got someone distinctly looking after them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So notice that and some of you are already telling us that you're noticing, and we might not use the language power dynamic when you were thinking about it, but Caroline, your example, you were unable to be in the room. Therefore, when you had the noisy, chatty HRD, being able to like cut over her, stand behind her, do all the classic techniques. Or if we were in a Zoom or an MS Teams setting, we know that it would feel slightly different. So there is a power dynamic shift. I also like what you said, Phil, in that we should, when we're designing, we start designing for those online first. I'm noticing people do that second. It's like, oh, what can we do in the room? And then how do you include people on the computer screen? So actually what you're saying and suggesting is start with what would you be doing if this was all online, then think about what would you do if it was in the room, and then how do you marry the two together?
Yeah, exactly.
And how are you, I mean, you're talking to your clients, are you just being really, I guess we have to be very deliberate and saying, listen, this is now taking, takes extra time to design. We're designing for two different solutions here. And these are all the different elements that is needed.
Yeah, exactly. I go, I go very deliberately. I think I'm lucky because I've met quite a few, the people who I've met as clients on this journey, have often had a bad hybrid experience first. So we get to design them away from that, which is usually quite a strong motivator if we can say, that's not going to happen. We're not going to get sound interference and it just blowing up. We're not going to be in a position where no one can hear the online people talk. Yeah. Unless you're sat right next to the screen.
So managing the client is another thing. So whilst many of us have got into the groove of managing our clients to have those conversations about face-to-face or about online, we now have to be even more deliberate. Make no assumptions that your client's going to understand what it is you're going to be doing from a design perspective if they're going to do a hybrid. And also I'm hearing you say it takes longer to do this design. So you need to be ready for that as the designer, facilitator, but you also need to be telling your client that and therefore factor that into your pricing.
Yeah.
And even if they bulk at the pricing, they need to be aware of how much effort this is going to take going into the future.
Yeah. And just linking in with the chat as well, from a tech point of view, I don't know about you, but every client I go to has a different levels and different styles of tech.
Yeah, let's talk about the tech. I think that's really important.
Yeah, sometimes, and perhaps more and more as we go forward, we might walk into a room and just go, oh, wow, this room is perfect for hybrid. This room works and is designed for hybrid. But quite frequently, my practice has been to get there as early as possible and to see what's in the room. And to go around the building going, what else could I use? One little tip that I'll throw in is, the table mics that you get. Yeah. Often organisations buy them in bulk, like they'll buy 10 for the building. Now, an interesting thing I learned with Zoom is if the table mics are the same, then Zoom can treat them as one mic. So you don't do anything. You just plug in 5 table mics that work exactly the same. And when you choose microphones, it will give you that microphone with the number 5 in brackets. That means you're selecting all of those microphones as one, and Zoom will work out all the complicated sound stuff for you. But what I'm saying is go there, test it. This isn't an hour before we start setup. This is a week before. I've had to buy a new extension cable. I've had to buy a new HDMI cable. I've had to do different things in order to make what the client wanted come to reality from a tech point of view.
And do you buy the equipment, or do you charge them and give it to them?
Bit of both, depends how much. So the 10 meter HDMI cable, I went, yes, I'll have that. That's useful for me. But the extension cable I didn't need. So
and then so I've got do a site visit before, just like you would do a virtual site visit by asking to go in and try someone's technology, especially if it's MS Teams. Sam experienced this with us, Sam Evans, and Phil and I did some training with her and her business. That was quite entertaining. You all know about MS Teams. I don't need to go on about it. So site visit beforehand to see what tech is actually available. But that sounds, it's not like a site visit the week before. This sounds like a site visit the month before, because if you need to order tech, you need to give yourself a bit of time. Look for table microphones, and if they're all one, I don't know what you want to call it, one brand.
It's brand and model.
Brand and model.
Yes.
Good point. Zoom does very clever things. Please don't ask me what you do and how you plug them all in, people, but we'll work on that. And then there's the element of you need extension leads, HDMI cables. And if you are doing stuff in room with all these cables, please, please, please take gaffer tape with you. You need to tape things down. There is nothing worse than tripping over a cable. You look like an idiot, and also it hurts. And it's dangerous. What else can people do? So there's lots of chat here about technology. What other tech do we need to think about?
Well, let me back away from tech as well.
Okay.
What about just making it their responsibility?
Yeah, but what if they don't
would
know?
happen? You know, if they've got 4 sites, what if part of your contracting for running hybrid is to say, I need everyone to see each other, everyone to be able to hear each other. And I won't be responsible for that. And this workshop will not work unless your IT team can provide that ability. Now, you might want to help them with that, but I quite like kind of just recognizing where the borders are of our responsibility and actually setting that border according to our own comfort. There's one version of hybrid where I call it floating heads, which has worked really well for me. If there's not very many remote participants, you can just ask them to dial into a buddy and have their head on a laptop screen. Because they're all on different calls, there's no sound interference, right? So that can work really well as a simple solution. And also with floating heads, you're doing that thing where you're saying the buddy is going to be responsible for the tech solution. The buddy's going to be responsible for bringing that person into the meeting.
Yes.
Rather than putting it all on you.
I mean, there's agreement going through the chat box about getting the client to take responsibility and that they should know their tech. And I think we need to be ready, though, to say what our recommendation is. Because I think about who my stakeholders are that I deal with in corporate, and they're as about technical as I am. And I'm even more technical than them, which is not saying a lot. So I think maybe part of this new world of hybrid is having the new kit list. No longer is it flip chart, marker pens, projector screen, tables and chairs. It's microphones and extension leads and yada yada yada. There's a request here of, could you explain your floating heads, please? Lots of that. Could you do that a bit more?
Yeah, so this actually was a pre-pandemic solution. Unbelievable, I know. I was running, I do a lot of work.
Sam, thank you.
Oxfam, I work in Oxford, so they're a wonderful client that I really love working with. I worked with a global team who only come together like twice a year, global fundraising team for Oxfam International. They were having their team day, and it was about 3 days before they told me that of the 12 delegates, 3 people couldn't get their visas and weren't allowed into the country. So we said, okay, we've still got the team day. We've still got sort of 8 people flying in or coming to Oxford for the team day. We're going to go ahead. And I said, okay, great. How are we going to do that? And they said, well, we're going to Skype call them in.
Skype.
And they, I know, back in the day. So they Skyped, 3 of them Skyped their buddy who they were close to, and they took responsibility for looking after them during the day. So their laptop, the seat next to them was literally a laptop with a face on a screen. And because it was only 12 of us in the room with their sound turned right up, they could be heard when, we had to be sure not to speak over them, but they could be heard. And because it was only a few in the room, their microphones, just the inbuilt microphones, could pick up what was being said by everyone in the room. And we made it a central theme sort of at the beginning. We talked about how it was going to work. We talked about how we all needed to respect it. We gave them permission to interrupt us if it wasn't working for them at any point. And we kind of put them at the centre. And it was a really good day. So, floating heads, hopefully that explains it a bit more.
Thank you. Catherine Wakefield, just saw your comment in the chat box. I leave the responsibility to the tech team to set up. She's currently in-house and they use the floating heads idea a lot. And it's a familiar solution for people to use. So it does work. And it has design limitations, absolutely. I think we all acknowledge that.
And just for me, it's 20 people in the room and 5 is the maximum. So I go on like a 20% ratio, 1 to 5 is my top of the head kind of. I wouldn't want 8-10 floating heads in a room of 10 people.
Yeah.
I want to keep it minimal.
It looks like Sam Warner and Phil, you guys are about to get touted out with Rich Bellows. He said, I'm going to stick to my strengths and I'm going to ask Phil or Sam to be my co-facilitators and put that as a condition of my contract. I love that idea. There's some different challenges around the size and group of participants, says Gwen. Absolutely. Which require different types of tech. Have you don't have to say you've done it personally, but what's the experience like that we can think of for bigger groups if people are being asked to do? I know one of my clients is doing a conference that's hybrid, and they've just said, oh no, we've got the technical all sorted out. And my heart sank because that's where they went first. It was all about the tech. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And it's so much more than that. And they're like, oh, we've got microphones in the room. It'll be okay. And they'll all be on screen, so they'll be able to see us. And I'm like, oh, God. And what would we be saying for the bigger groups of what they need to be doing or can they do?
I'd be interested to hear what everyone else has got to say.
Yes.
I imagine that, and it's kind of like a little work fantasy. I can imagine running a huge event where there's a conference with kind of 200 people in the room and a huge length of an auditorium Zoom wall of just hundreds of screens. I don't know if it's dystopian or but I just like the idea. We don't have to be co-located to have a shared experience and to learn together. So I think where we can achieve that and get the positives of using this tech, all the better.
I have seen, and if anyone's on here who knows what I'm about to describe, I have seen influencers and sports people do they're almost doing like a conference. It's online, but they're in a studio. It's a full-on studio, and behind them is a wall. It's a bit like Saturday Night TV or whatever it's called with Ant and Dec. When they had everyone on Zoom on the wall behind them. But I've seen that setup going on now, and people using that. So I'd be really curious to how to access that because I think we could have a lot of fun. And I did write to Phil this morning and said, I've had an ingenious idea and I'm going to put it out so that 93 people can hold us to account. I reckon we should do a hybrid pod one day. So we can do in-room and online and test it. And one of us is online and one of us is in the room. No idea how to make that work. Yeah, the hybrid conferences look more like a TV studio. Thanks, Catherine. Is that what they call them, hybrid conference? Is that what it is? Okay. So I'm quite up for doing that. I think that'd be quite an entertaining thing to do. So Phil, when we were talking, and I know Kat helped you design a lot of this as well, so I want to name Kat who's in the room with us. We came up with a little mnemonic. So 3 things we need to be thinking about when we are in the world of hybrid, and it's your tie. An easy one for you all to remember. So it's remembering the technology, inclusion, and engagement. And not necessarily in that order, though. But we couldn't work out another word. Yite. Didn't really do it, but everyone, I hope, can remember a tie. So we wanted to give you an opportunity just to say hi to one another. So we're going to pop you into some breakout rooms for 10 minutes. And we want you to have a conversation and discuss, given what we've just discussed, and what we know with the pandemic, what we know with the way businesses are changing and moving, what are you going to do if a client now approaches you and asks you to run a hybrid meeting? So I don't know if I'm setting up these rooms or Phil is. I'll do it. Wow,
Good.
I've never done so many breakout rooms.
No.
You're in trios, and I've chucked a good 10 minutes on the clock for you, so you can all go and have a good chat with 30 seconds. So it's just an open discussion. Say hi to who's in the room with you, just introduce yourselves, and then have a chat. What are you going to say now? What is going to be your stance as you start thinking about the new world of hybrid? If you have any questions, put your hand up in the meeting room and Phil or I will come running. Enjoy, and we'll see you when you come back. Welcome back. Slowly everyone does that trickling. Some people stay and max out the full 30 seconds and others go leaving. And I don't quite know what that says.
We're like, there's 16 people. Oh, what a nice little Zoom room we've got. Here comes everybody.
Yeah, incoming.
Landed. Welcome back.
Who's everyone back in the room?
Yeah.
We've lost some people though. 20 people got lost in the ether. Oh well, never mind. Maybe they'll all rejoin in a moment. So it'd be really good to hear some voices in the room as to what you were discussing, what was coming up for you as you went into the breakout rooms. So if you'd like...
Hello, I can talk.
Of course, he's straight in there. Hey, Jason, how are you?
So first I'd probably ring up Phil and panic and ask how it's possible to do. But I think it's really deeply planning, where we used to just quote and give a proposal for one thing. Now the price has to double, if not triple, because the amount of work that needs to be done, the different sorts of people that are controlling the Zoom as well as the actual event itself. So there's a lot more strategy behind what we do. It's a bit nerve-wracking. I was asked to do a virtual event last year with everyone in the boardroom, and I refused to do it because I panicked.
Yeah.
I just said I just couldn't do it because there just wouldn't be any flow. So I decided to go actually in the boardroom last year, and that saved doing that side of it. But I'll have to. I think test is the main strategy behind this for me anyway. Just so I can get over. I'm a bit of a control freak, like yourself.
Well, I think maybe in this situation, a control freak. In this situation, we have to be, though, to test the technology and make sure that everybody knows what they're doing. Otherwise, we now can see that it could all fall apart. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate you sharing those thoughts. Someone just said in the chat, Misha, I'll come to you in a moment. Someone just said in the chat, like, how much should I budget for technology? Phil, what did you just say?
I said it depends. Unfortunately, there's so many unknowns in how much should I budget for technology. There was a cool mic that was being shared earlier in the chat called a catch mic or something like that, which sounded really cool. That could work really well with hybrid. I found a client that had an owl mic, which has a 360 camera and a directing microphone. So actually the camera zooms in on the person that's speaking. That was about $1,000, but the client already had one. So I was like, yes, we'll use that. It depends on what they've got and where they're at and where you're at and what you want to achieve.
Gwen just said a candau. A candau, is that how you say it? So Owl or Countdown both have a 360 camera and work really well. Thanks, Gwen. I appreciate that.
I did use an Owl with an audience of about 20, and it was just too many people, as Gwen's just saying as well. Yeah.
Look at that. So Misha, I'm going to come to you, and then Phil, can you answer Richard's question in the chat afterwards? So Misha, hello.
Hello. Thanks, Kirsty. Thank you to Piero and John. We had a lovely chat. I think for me, going forward with any kind of hybrid proposal, it just feels like it's automatic that there's going to be a co-producer put into that brief. And yes, it's more time. Yes, it's more money. Yes, it's more work. But the end result is that it produces a really quality event with engagement and much, much more value.
Yeah.
So I think that for me is the biggest learning from this. As soon as we say, oh, the word hybrid, or we're not quite sure if it's going to be in the room and Zoom, it's co-produced, I think, all the way.
Yes. And it has to be some definitive, we need to know in advance. You can't just change your mind that something's going to be all in the room or it's all virtual because we're going to design for this. I think that's the clarity conversation to be having with clients. And I know someone wrote in the chat earlier, but things get changed at the very last minute. We need to be more nimble. We need to be more agile. And that's probably very true. But again, we need to get used to this new world and this new technology. Otherwise, and I know none of us like to feel exposed, but I think we just have to be honest as well and share, like, this is new to me and this is how we're flowing. Thanks, Misha. So Phil, can you answer Rich's question in the chat, please, about design time and delivery time?
Yeah, I was going design and delivery for me is 1-to-1. I know some people go higher on design, but I find 1-to-1 works for me. But then when you add the tech trip, that can be, it depends whether you're going, I'm cycling across town to Oxfam to check out what they've got there. It's a couple of hours. When I'm, going to Surrey to check out the offices, that's basically a day out of my diary. So it just can have another whole day of prep just to do the tech trip.
Caroline, what's your question?
It's a question and a thought. I do. With Graham and Christina, we were talking about the power of chat. We've really discovered it from running Zoom or Teams or whatever, the beauty of being able to pull in thoughts and ideas, particularly from your introverted participants. So a thought and a question is, could you still have chat? So you've got a hybrid meeting, but yet the people in the room, your roomies, are dialed into it on mobiles. And you could say, right, everybody, answers in chat. What do you think to X? And then you as the facilitator catching their ideas, you draw people in, ask. So you're getting that advantage still, and it gets over some of those inclusion issues.
I love it. I wouldn't use Zoom. I wouldn't get everyone in the room to get their devices connected to the same call that everyone's in. So I'd use a third technology to provide a chat window that everyone had equal access to. I'm off the top of my head, I'm not sure if Menti does that or maybe a Slack channel. Probably I'd go for something that exists within the client. So whatever they use as their IM service, I'd probably go for that and ask if you can be added to it.
Nice.
I think Mentimeter has the speech bubble option, doesn't it? But I think as a facilitator, you have to keep a real close eye on that as they're coming in. I think in what we're speaking about, in my experience, is where we are going across Europe and English isn't the first language. Sometimes there may be colleagues who may be reluctant to speak because they might feel like they're being judged. So that voice is given in chat, and that's really worked for certain countries. I think you just need to gauge the audience and kind of plan ahead.
Yeah.
What you really think about. Yeah, and it's just a stereotypical thing. I found that with Budapest, colleagues from Hungary, they'll really only just speak. They'll only speak if you're spoken to. They won't generally come forward. So that was my channel in via the chat.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that, Graham. And just seeing in the chat box as well, people saying they use Padlet as another way that people can chat. Jamboard as well. I can see Margaret's hand's gone up. Before, I know people are leaving for the hour. Phil and I just wanted to share with you though that Phil has created a masterclass on hybrid meetings. And we are going to be running a class on Thursday the 10th of March, 2 p.m. UK. We are going to, this time around, if we can get 30 people, that's the limit. But if you can come, you're most welcome. I've just dropped the link in the chat box. There will be emails that go out as well. So if you can sign up, and also through our social media channels on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. But if you would want to come and learn more, and in that session, we dive more into technology and a lot more into the types of exercises of inclusion and engagement. So we dive a lot deeper and go into more than we could possibly do today. This was a taster, I guess is probably the best way. Give us a flavour. So if you want to come along, the link has just gone into the chat. I'll throw it in again. It's also on the SOF website, and I will be sure to put it in all future newsletters. Someone did have their hand up. Margaret, did you want to ask that question?
No, it's just very quickly, really. I was agreeing about having people, if you have people on their laptops in the room and on Zoom, so they can all participate in the chat.
Yes.
We've had to do that in order to sort of like follow up on Zoom polls, because you can do it on Zoom for the people in the chat, but not the others. But then when it comes to breakout rooms, you can't actually remember who's in the room and who's not. It makes it really complicated. So you do need a separate technology for the kind of
and it's the planning, isn't it, Margaret?
It is. It's such exactly.
Two people.
Yeah.
So you know what it's like. All of you know what
everything.
it's like when you're in the room and you're juggling groups. Imagine you've then got to turn around and look at a computer screen and think, oh my goodness, are you guys in a group? I mean, it's just.
It's very, very, it's exhausting. It's hard to get right. Anyway, that was all.
It's just doing one space. So that's why we need two facilitators. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. So I can't believe an hour has gone by yet again. Thank you so much for joining us at the SOF Pod today. The next one is Friday, the 4th of March, and it's all about bonding and kindness with my friend Patrick Cowden. And if you've not met Patrick before, all I can say is he's one crazy American Germanic hippie who will just tell you he loves you, and he does genuinely. And we're going to be talking about how do you create kindness and bonds with people within 15 minutes of meeting them. So hopefully you can come and join us for that. That will be 9 a.m. GMT on the 4th of March. This recorded session is probably going to go up onto our YouTube channel, so we'll make sure we tag that as well. So if ever you want to watch it back, you can. I'd just like to say thank you to Phil for being the guest today, and I'd like to say thank you to all of you for being here and participating and making it what it is. Maybe see some of you on the 10th of March. Otherwise, thank you so much. Go enjoy your Fridays. I hope the emergence energy keeps showing itself through the rest of February, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Kirsty and Phil. Bye.
Bye. Bye.